My name is David Clark. I am 54 years old, and I have been in prison for 34 of those years. When people hear that number, they usually stop listening after it, as if everything before my crime no longer matters. But I existed long before these walls, long before a single moment reshaped my entire life. I was born and raised in a working-class town in the Midwest of the United States. It was a place built on factories, steel, and routine. A town where men worked with their hands and learned early not to expect too much from life. My childhood was simple, structured, and emotionally restrained. My father was a laborer, strict and distant, shaped by exhaustion and responsibility. My mother held the family together quietly, believing that stability mattered more than happiness. We weren't a family that talked about feelings or dreams. You learned discipline, respect, and silence. I grew up understanding that survival was the priority, not fulfillment. From a young age, I learned how to observe rather than participate, how to keep things inside and move forward without complaint. School was never a place where I felt inspired. I wasn't rebellious, but I wasn't ambitious either. I blended in, did what was required, and waited for the day to end. No one ever asked me what I wanted from life, and I never asked myself. After high school, the path was already laid out: work, responsibility, repetition. I entered the workforce immediately. Factories, warehouses, long shifts, physical labor. Life became predictable, almost mechanical. Days turned into years without ceremony. I measured time by paychecks and exhaustion. I believed that as long as I stayed busy and out of trouble, I was doing something right. In my late teens and early 20s, I carried a quiet frustration I didn't know how to name. I felt trapped, but also afraid of change. I lacked direction, but I convinced myself that direction was overrated. I thought patience would eventually reward me. Looking back now, I see that I was emotionally unprepared for pressure, conflict, and temptation. Before prison, I didn't see myself as someone capable of destroying his own life. I thought mistakes happened to other people, reckless people, angry people, people without control. I believed I was different because I endured, because I followed rules, because I didn't cause trouble. That belief made me careless in a way I didn't understand at the time. When I was 20 years old, everything I thought I knew about myself ended. Since then, 34 years have passed inside concrete walls and locked doors. I have grown from a young man into an old one here. The world outside moved forward without me, while my life became measured in counts, routines, and memories. This is who I was before prison. Not a monster, not a headline, just a man who didn't understand how fragile a life can be before it breaks. I was 20 years old when I committed the crime that would define the rest of my life. I say that sentence without drama now, because drama belongs to the moment itself, not to the memory of it. What happened did not begin with violence. It began with pressure, confusion, and a belief that I was running out of options. At that age, I thought I understood the world. I believed I knew who I was and what I would never do. I was wrong about both. I was carrying anger I had never learned to process, and fear I had never admitted to myself. I felt cornered by circumstances, by people, by my own inability to imagine another way forward. None of that excuses what I did, but it explains how I arrived there. The night of the crime did not feel extraordinary while it was happening. That is the part people rarely understand. There was no moment where time slowed down, no clear voice telling me to stop. There was tension, noise, movement, and a series of decisions made too quickly and too confidently. I believed I was in control, even as control was slipping away from me. 4 people lost their lives because of my actions. 4 separate lives, histories, families, futures, ended by choices I made in a matter of minutes. I did not know them well enough to hate them, and that truth haunts me more than anything else. This was not a crime born from long-planned revenge. It was the result of escalation, panic, and a mind that could not see beyond the immediate moment. I remember fragments, more than a clear sequence. Raised voices, fear in the room, the overwhelming sense that things had gone too far, followed immediately by the realization that there was no way back. Once the first line was crossed, every next step felt inevitable, even though it was not. I see now that inevitability was an illusion I created to avoid stopping. When it was over, the silence was unbearable. Not peaceful, empty. I understood immediately that my life was no longer mine. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel triumph. I felt something close to disbelief, as if I were watching myself from a distance, unable to comprehend what I had just done. Arrest came quickly. There was no attempt to run that mattered, no clever escape. I remember the weight of handcuffs, the cold clarity setting in, the sudden understanding that I had traded every future version of myself for one irreversible night. In the interrogation room, time finally slowed down, not in my favor, but against me. During the trial, I listened to words like murder, multiple victims, and life sentence as if they belonged to someone else. I watched families cry for people who would never come back, and I realized for the first time the scale of what I had done. Not just lives taken, but generations altered. I entered prison as a young man who thought his mistake was a moment. I did not yet understand that this moment would stretch across decades. This crime was not just the worst thing I ever did, it became the center of everything I would ever be allowed to be. This is the truth of what I did, not softened, not denied. 4 people are dead, and I am still alive inside these walls. And that reality follows me every single day. Regret does not arrive all at once in prison. It grows slowly, year by year, as time keeps moving and you remain in the same place. When I first came here, I thought regret meant feeling bad about what I had done. I was wrong. Regret is not a feeling, it is a condition you live inside. I have spent 34 years behind these walls. I entered prison as a 20-year-old who still believed time was something endless. I am 54 now, and my body reminds me every day that time is the most unforgiving thing there is. I have grown old in a place where nothing is meant to grow. Aging in prison is a quiet humiliation. You watch your strength fade in mirrors that never change. You feel pain in joints that once carried you without effort. You realize that your future contains no milestones, no retirement, no second chance, no beginning again. Outside, people measure life in chapters. In here, life is measured in loss. I regret the lives I took in ways words cannot hold. Not just their deaths, but everything they never got to become. I regret the pain I caused their families, a pain that did not end with the trial or the sentence. While I have been forced to confront my actions every day, they have been forced to live with absence. That imbalance will never leave me. But there is another regret people rarely talk about, the life I never lived. I regret the man I could have become if I had understood myself better, if I had paused instead of reacted, if I had asked for help instead of pretending I didn't need it. I regret the decades that passed without choice, without intimacy, without freedom to fail and try again. I have missed the ordinary moments people take for granted. Falling in love, building a family, watching parents grow old, becoming someone's safe place. I have watched the world change through fragments, news reports, conversations, brief visits, and realized that I am becoming a stranger to the life I once belonged to. A life sentence does something deeper than confinement. It removes hope as a structure. You are not waiting for release. You are waiting for endurance to end. Every year forces you to accept that this is not a chapter. This is the entire book. That knowledge reshapes your thoughts, your dreams, even your memories. There are nights when regret is so heavy it feels physical. Not dramatic, not loud, just constant. I replay decisions I cannot undo and futures I will never touch. I ask myself who I might have been if one moment had gone differently. I am still alive, and I am still here. That is the weight of my punishment and the source of my deepest regret. I will carry what I did until my last breath, inside a place where time does not heal. It only reminds you of what is gone forever. This is what 34 years of regret looks like. Not tears, not excuses, just the understanding that some mistakes do not end.